I want to turn now to Terry Gruca in Austin to pick up our coverage, talking about people who are working from home.
Absolutely, Jason. You know, while only essential businesses are open, so many of us are now working from home. And with schools closed, our kids are at home also studying and doing their schoolwork online at home. So how do we make the most of work while balancing life as a parent? That's our next topic as Texas comes together.
More of us are working from home than ever before. Zoom reports more than 200 million people are using its video calling services every day. Even your kids may make an appearance doing a conference call.
I'm trying to do the interview and my kids is back.
Governor Abbott has shut down schools until May 4th.
Let's stay hitched because this journey is going to teach us some lessons.
Parents, you've had to figure out how to get your work done and somehow still homeschool at the same time.
I just wish I want to go back now. I'm bored.
It's a balancing act, and let's be real, it can be overwhelming. Tonight, how to get your work and schoolwork done at the same time.
Joining us now to help us find some serenity while working from home is Sarah Kaprowski. She is Keller ISD's Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction, and she's become a work school from home guru herself. Hi, Sarah. Thanks for being here.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
We also have Sandy Jones. She's from Someday Organizing. She's a professional organizer. I could use you, Sandy. And she's going to give us some helpful information on how to get our lives together in all of this. We appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Now you're going to get a chance to ask your questions, so text those to the number that you see on your screen, 214-977-6028. We want you to include your first name and the city you're messaging from so that we can get to as many of them in our short time here together tonight. So Sarah, let me start with you. I know you've got some great tips here, and you've made it pretty easy for us because they all start with R's, which I know helps a lot of us right now because we're in information overload for sure. The first one is realistic work expectations. What do you mean by that?
Right. So realistic work expectations are going to meet the needs of your family and child. So this is going to look different at home. Whereas an elementary student may only be working 1 to 2 hours a day of classwork broken up throughout the day. And a middle school student, high school student may be able to maintain 5 to 8 hours throughout the day. But we want parents to focus on not recreating a classroom schedule. We know you're at home and it has to look different.
Speaking of that, Sandy, I know all of our homes are a little bit different, and having the kids working alongside us can be really difficult if you don't have the space. So some of that is creating realistic work expectations when it comes to the space. How do we do that?
Well, I think starting out with not having it in your bedroom or at the dining table is a good idea. And setting up an area in your home that really matches your work area that you had previously. Having a desk, having a computer, having a light, having a door if possible. Setting it up so that you are removed from all distractions if possible.
Really tough to do. I've got 3 kids, so I've got my 3 kids working alongside me. It can be really challenging for sure. Sarah, you also mentioned read, read, read. So how much should we be having our children read?
Right. So children are coming out of an environment that has been saturated with language. So if anything else, expose them to literature, books, vocabulary, and conversation. This could be talking every night at the dining room table or going on a walk and naming new things that they see, but just that constant exposure to literature.
Sandy, I would think from an organizing standpoint, it's important to have books kind of in an area that your kids can get without needing you. Is there a trick to that?
Again, I think it's about setting up each family member for success and for convenience and simplification. So if you can set up an area for your children where they can do their schoolwork, they can do their personal reading, they can do their personal tasks, that respects everybody's boundaries and kind of need for space in the home and need for personal space and quiet when they need it would be ideal. Yeah.
Sarah, the third topic that you brought up was be ready. What do you mean by that?
Right. So I had to learn this one the hard way. So mornings are stressful, especially with children at home and trying to work a full-time job. realize that getting ready the night before is so very important, and even alongside your child. So right now we get ready at night, making sure technology is charged, pencils are sharpened, everything he has is ready for the day to make the morning go a whole lot smoother for learning.
Sandy, I would think this goes not just when it comes to schoolwork and our own work life at home, but even meals and things like that. Are there things we can do, like in our kitchen, to get ready for the next day?
Yeah, I absolutely echo what she says. Anything that you can do to plan ahead the night before to set yourself up ready for success the next day is the way to go. And absolutely, one of the things a lot of moms are saying to me is that I buy snacks and they're gone in a day. And so I recommend that you set aside snacks for the day by each person, kind of like packing a lunchbox. And this is the snacks for the day, and this eliminates grazing throughout the day and just burning through everything. But anything that you can do like that, prepare in advance the night before, and everybody knows what the expectations are, is really beneficial.
Great tips. Sarah, the last one you said was, I think, a really important one, and that is remembering grace, because we are really all juggling so much right now.
That is so true. So giving yourself grace. A lot of us woke up and then the next morning we were homeschool teachers and working full-time jobs. So not every morning is going to go the way you woke up and thought it would. So give yourself grace, patience, and give grace to others during this time.
We're all in this together for sure.
Right.
David joins us now with some of your viewer questions. And David, I know your family's juggling too right now.
Everyone's juggling. There's so many great questions here. I'm going to try to put a couple of them together for us here. And this one is for, I guess, for Sarah. Some questions about, some people say they should dress up or wear appropriate work clothes when they're doing their work from home. What kind of frame of mind should people be in when they're like going to work and it only takes them a minute to get there?
Right. I personally have kept my routine. I enjoy getting up early and getting myself ready and going to work. And that has really helped my mindset of a professional setting and engaging and being ready for the work day and continuing on with what has to be accomplished. And
Sandy, a question about, I guess this is maybe gets into your area of organization, but structuring your day and making sure that you are kind of have break times inside of a day. Is that something that you could just put on a blackboard and say, hey, we're all going to follow this schedule?
Well, I think ideally if you sit with your family or with your spouse and yourself and create an ideal schedule to start with, that would be great, but allowing a lot of room for flexibility. And I think the schedule is really important, and it's particularly important to work breaks into your day and that there is a time to shut down your laptop at the end of the day. It's easy for us, particularly a person who lives home alone, to work well into the night and to overwork themselves. So to set boundaries and schedules for yourself, absolutely.
Such a great point. We are seemingly working almost harder, many of us are right now. I wish you could see my screen because the questions are coming in like crazy. 214-977-6028. Text me your questions. Back to you, Terry.
We really appreciate it. Thanks so much, David. Get your phone out too. Open up the camera because we have some great information and resources on making the most out of working from home. Some terrific websites here, some great links to use with your kids. I use some of these with my own kids, and especially with some of the rain that we're going to experience here in the next couple of weeks, could be good ideas for you. So we've made it easy. Just use your phone's camera, point it toward the code on your screen to scan it, and when you see a pop-up on your phone, tap that. That will take you directly to a special website with resources and information. There's some really great free resources out there right now. A lot of the educational websites that used to charge are opening their sites for parents to use at home. There's some great live webcams that you can almost feel like you're taking a field trip even though you're not leaving your home. So I highly encourage you to take a look at some of these and use them with your kids while you are at home. Still to come here as Texas comes together, Mark Cuban. You probably know him from Shark Tank as well as the owner of the Dallas Mavericks. He's going to talk about what this entire COVID-19 pandemic has done for small businesses and our economy.
Live across the state of Texas, this is Texas Together, a coronavirus conversation.
Welcome back. I'm Deborah Knapp, live from KENS 5 in San Antonio. And thanks for staying with us. Now, if you're just tuning in, we want to take some time tonight to answer your questions about the issues and challenges your family may be facing in this uncertain time. We have gathered a group of experts on a variety of topics so you can walk away empowered. We'll get to your questions in just a moment. But first, we know many of you want to know about the progress being made in stopping the spread of the coronavirus. This week, Governor Abbott asked Texans to stay home except for essential needs. The goal is to help flatten the curve. Now, you've probably heard that phrase. The question on a lot of minds, what happens after we flatten the curve? Dr. John Carlo is an epidemiologist. He led the state's medical response to Ebola, and we asked him about what happens next in the fight against the coronavirus.
Social distancing is really the method we're using right now to keep our hospitals from being overwhelmed. And so the big thing that we're trying to do here is slow things down so that we don't overwhelm our precious hospital resources and that we can stay ahead of this in terms of taking care of people that have severe infections. Once we get over that curve, there is still going to be coronavirus. And so, in addition to what we're doing now, beyond that period where we get through the peak, we have to think about that, the only way to really prevent an individual from getting sick or an infection from COVID-19 is either a vaccine or hopefully we come up with some therapeutics or medications that can lessen the severity if you do get sick. And so there's a number of things that are being tried right now to do just that. But without those two things in place, in addition to the social distancing we're doing now, we have a long road ahead of us with this. First thing you want to do is contact your physician, your health provider, somebody that you regularly see, and make sure that they are aware. If you're experiencing severe signs and symptoms, and the best way I would suggest looking at this is if you can't complete a complete sentence, or if you're having real difficulty breathing, then it is time to go to the emergency room. And in that situation, it's also a good idea to call ahead and let them know you're coming so that they can be prepared for you when you arrive. Thankfully, most cases of COVID-19 infections are going to be very, very mild. Most people are going to get over it just fine. There's no treatment. It's really just taking care of yourself and doing what you would normally do if you had a bad cold.
While our state leaders and medical experts continue their work, we know you are continuing your work to try to find some normalcy. Coronavirus is forcing change in our lives in many ways, and that's why we're here answering your questions tonight. You'll get a chance to ask your questions. Text them to the number on your screen, 214-977-6028. Please include your first name and the city you're messaging from. We'll get to as many as we can tonight. For business owners, their employees, and their customers, it has been especially tough. For the next 10 minutes, we'll be talking to experts and answering your questions about the impact COVID-19 is having on business and the economy.
The first quarter of the year is done, and for the stock markets, it was the worst quarter since the financial crisis in 2008. As markets surge, small business owners try to stay afloat.
Our customer counts have dramatically declined. Way fewer customers per day per store.
But help is on the way.
Within 3 weeks, we'll have direct deposit into people's accounts.
As airlines park their planes, President Trump considers whether he needs to limit domestic flights. When will the U.S. economy bounce back?
Let's meet our guest to talk about the economy. Our first guest is a familiar face. You've seen him on Shark Tank, and he owns the Dallas Mavericks. He also has one of the best business minds in America. Welcome, Mark Cuban.
Thank you.
And we're also glad to welcome Philip Kendall, who's a vice president for the financial services company, Charles Schwab.
Hello.
Well, there are different economic forecasts being discussed, ranging from a sharp decline followed by a quick bounce back. Others say it will be a very slow recovery. Is there anything about the Texas economy which will help it rebound faster or stronger? Mark Cuban, let's start with you.
I think we're well positioned. If there's going to be a strong rebound quickly, Texas will probably lead the way. We have so many businesses here, so many have come here. We've got a dynamic economy up until this point. I mean, if you're going to be in any state in the union, Texas is probably the best positioned.
Well, of all the industries threatened by the coronavirus, none has been impacted as deeply and immediately as the hospitality industry. The Texas Restaurant Association says 1.4 million Texans work in this industry. Now, there is money in the stimulus package to help restaurants, bars, and hotels. Philip, how will this work?
Well, the stimulus package includes a $300 billion grant to small business, and the restaurant business definitely falls in that category. Roughly 90% of restaurants have fewer than 50 employees, so they would definitely benefit from this stimulus. It's going to come in the form of zero-interest loans, and these are provided by the federal government, and many of them can be forgiven. The loans then can be used to bridge the loss of income and revenue while your patronage is down to these restaurants. But the crucial caveat for many of these loans will be that it's going to be used primarily to pay employee compensation. And in the restaurant business, that also includes the loss of cash tip income. So companies that can keep their employees on payroll for about 8 weeks or so, that's what we're advising, that they'll be eligible for many of these loan forgivenesses. And I think guidance has been said that many of these loans will be made available ultimately through FDIC lending institutions and credit unions, from what I understand.
Thank you, Philip. Well, while many businesses have had to shut their doors due to the coronavirus, some businesses are booming. Mark Cuban, where would you tell people to go look for jobs?
I mean, check in your neighborhood first to see what businesses are doing well. You know, it's just crazy which ones are and aren't. I mean, if you're selling toilet paper, obviously, if you're selling things that you keep in your pantry, those types of companies are going to do well. Grocery stores are going to do well. And what I would recommend to people is don't look for the perfect job. Don't look for the perfect career. Things are evolving so quickly, and there's so much change and uncertainty that I would just go get the job that presents itself and then be a free agent when your time comes. Again, there's so much uncertainty. There's no way you're going to just go out there and find the perfect job.
And Mark, what advice would you have for small businesses here in Texas?
I'll echo what Philip said. You know, the loans that he was referring to, the payroll protection plan, they go online at midnight tonight. And so for any small business owner, go to your bank's website, go to SBA.gov, download and fill out the form immediately. And then the minute, if you can apply online with your bank, do it at midnight tonight. If you can't, call them in the morning having the form already filled out. The beautiful thing about it is, as long as you have under 500 employees, you're going to be eligible. And I wholeheartedly recommend that every single small business owner and entrepreneur, and also even if you're an independent contractor, you drive for Lyft or what you work as a creative, as a contractor, go and apply. That's what this is designed to do. And to Philip's point, if you retain your employees for those 8 weeks, you don't have to pay it back. You get to just keep that money. So it's a unique opportunity. You have to take advantage of it.
All right, thank you. Philip, in what business sectors do you anticipate the return to normal will be the fastest, and what will take the longest?
Well, that's a great question. I'd love to hear Mark's take on that. But, you know, I think, you know, just we'll
follow up with him.
Yeah, personally, I think, you know, companies that are investing in virtual technology and ways to communicate and connect people virtually, that certainly is an area that I think probably is right now going to come full force. Companies that are embracing digital technology, for example, filling out forms online, digital signature applications that we can do on a more virtual basis. I think that would be very, very much of a fast-growing industry. Manufacturing is a question. Is there going to be pent-up demand once people are able to get out of their homes and get back engaged in society? Construction, perhaps, if you think about construction and government infrastructure, if they're going to focus a lot of programs on getting the economy back that way, perhaps that would be an area that would be quickly turning around.
And Mark, how about you? What do you see there?
You know, I don't know, but I don't know what businesses are going to be the best, but what I do know is that there's going to be a lot of unique businesses that are created, and most, if not a lot of them at least, will come from Texas. You know, when we get through this, the past was America 1.0. We're going through this horrible reset, and we're going to evolve on the other side into America 2.0. And there'll be unique entrepreneurs that create companies so that 5, 10 years from now, we'll look back and say, these 15 companies were created that just changed the world. So if you're an entrepreneur, if you have an idea, a vision for what it'll be like after this reset, go out there and start that company. Be innovative, be creative, because there will be amazing companies that come out of this, and there's no reason why it can't be you.
What encouraging words, Mark. It's great to hear that. Now, another industry that was hit hard early, airlines and their employees. What are they facing? Philip.
Well, obviously, it's going to be tough. I mean, I would put it in the same specter as the service industry and even restaurants. I mean, obviously, flights are going way down. International flight, which is a very lucrative part of the airline business, is virtually going to nothing for a while. So I think the impact will be similar. I think if you think about American Airlines and Southwest here locally, the Stimulus Act is actually providing about $25 billion to help the airlines. But again, it's right. A lot of stipulation is on paying the employees, compensation for employees. And, you know, I've also heard that, you know, that American Airlines, for example, and other airlines are repurposing their sideline planes to help bring in supplies from other companies. So maybe they can do different things, repurpose their fleets during this pandemic. So I believe it's going to be tough, but I do think, you know, the strong will survive.
All right, Philip, thank you. Well, we've had viewers texting in questions. Let's go to David Schechter, who has that.
Thanks, Deborah. This question is for Mark. I've heard from a lot of gig workers now who are messaging us, and that business, that whole industry has changed significantly. Do you have advice for people that are doing gig work, how they should think about their own futures?
Well, first you want to apply for the payroll protection program because it does include independent contractors like gig workers. Second, there are organizations that are setting up work from home. There's an app called Dave, and I'll admit that I'm affiliated with them, an advisor, and they have work from home programs as well. So you're going to go through a tough period of time where you're going to have to lean on the government a little bit, and they'll be there to help you. And I think the state of Texas will also be there to help gig workers. But as we start to come out of this, I think Philip mentioned it earlier, people are going to want to come out of their homes. People are going to feel cooped up. And so I think you'll see a resurgence for the gig economy. But you have to be resilient, you have to be agile, and you have to be ready to jump right back into it the minute things start to open up.
Thanks, Mark. And Philip, people have talked about their 401ks and stocks. We haven't really gotten into that, but stock prices are low. Should people be making moves in their 401ks right now?
Well, it all depends on your situation. Certainly, if you're in a position where you've lost your job and you do not have an income to support your families, you need to do whatever is necessary to generate cash to pay your essential bills, housing, utilities, things along those lines. So, if you're in a position where you're still working or you have the means to last for a while, I think it's a good time to reassess your risk tolerance. And certainly our recommendations were the strategies that you put in place, if they're well diversified and you have a good amount of stocks and bonds and mutual funds in a well diversified portfolio, many times the right move is to hang in there and ride this out. So again, it's unique to people's situations, and it really depends on where you are in terms of your ability to kind of make these essential expenses on a day-to-day basis.
Philip, thank you. Mark, thank you. We appreciate you guys joining us. Please keep those questions coming. We're going to send it back to Deborah.
All right, David. And get out your phone and open up the camera. If you're looking for more information or resources on business and the economy, we've made it easy for you. Using your phone's camera, point it toward this code on the screen to scan it. When you see a pop-up on your phone, tap it, and that will take you directly to a special website with resources and information. Testing is an important component of our state's response to COVID-19, and there are more testing sites opening across the state. The state health department's website lists 24 drive-through testing locations around Texas. Most of those locations are in the Dallas and Houston area. There are locations in Austin, El Paso, San Angelo, and San Antonio as well. Check with your local health department to find out about other testing availability in your area. Of course, our physical health is top of mind throughout all of this, but we also should be thinking about our mental health, too. Let's send it over to Houston, where KHOU's Mia Gradney is ready to take your mental health questions and get them answered. Mia?
Thanks so much, Deborah. You know, when we think about coronavirus, we immediately think about the symptoms, the fever, the cough, the shortness of breath. But even if you don't have those symptoms, the changes we're all going through because of coronavirus can easily take a toll on your mental health. Social distancing, college shelter at home, college stressful. When our everyday routines get uprooted and we're forced into change, our mental health can suffer, especially when it means staying home.
Being patient. I know it's hard under these circumstances.
Isolated from our friends, our families, and our coworkers.
The hardest thing for me right now is to be away from my kids.
Yes, it's for good reason, but that doesn't take away the sting felt mentally by adults and children.
I do think our kids are picking up on our anxieties, and so we have to sort of be mindful of that.
Let's get together and talk about ways to find peace of mind when it feels like our minds are in pieces. Department of Health and Human Services just launched a new mental health support hotline. It is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The number is there on your screen. It's 833-986-1919. Again, 833-986-1919. A lot of us are feeling the stress right now, so we've invited Bill Prasad to talk us through it. He is a licensed professional counselor in Houston. Good evening to you, Bill. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good evening, Mia. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you for asking. And I want to remind everyone watching, you can text your mental health questions to us. All you have to do is send a text message to this number, 214-977-6028. And if you're comfortable with it, please include your first name and the city you are messaging us from. We'll work to get to just as many of you as we can. So, Bill, social distancing and isolation aren't easy for a society constantly on the go. It is especially difficult for anyone already struggling with mental health issues. So who is most at risk right now, and what challenges does isolation present for them?
People who have a prior diagnosis for a psychiatric challenge like anxiety, depression, maybe bipolar, maybe exposure to a prior trauma will probably find that their symptoms have been exacerbated. Also, any individual who might have been in a violent relationship, they might see an escalation in those violent situations. In fact, in Montgomery County, which is a county in the Houston area, they've reported a 35% increase in the filing of DV cases for March, and that's a huge number, Mia.
So for people who are in these rather desperate situations dealing with mental health, may they perhaps be at the tipping point as well and thinking dangerous and detrimental thoughts? What should they do?
Well, you're right. Some people might start to show suicidal ideation. That would not be uncommon in a pandemic. And in order to deal with that, hopefully they are connected to people who will ask the right questions. And the question that you've got to ask, even if it might be uncomfortable, you've got to ask, are you thinking about killing yourself? Then the next question would have to do with, well, do they have a plan? And then you'd ask them, do they have the means? So if their plan was to get some alcohol and some Xanax, and then if you ask them, do you have it at home? And they said yes, well, then you have three things going on that raise a huge red flag. And at that point, you might have to intervene, perhaps by calling the police.
All right. Bill Prasad, now I want to ask you about the general public. You know, people who have faced relatively limited challenges until now, who now have onset anxiety and fear. How might they feel right now, and what can they do to cope?
Well, Mia, it's a real normal reaction to have heightened anxiety in an abnormal situation like this. A lot of us fear the unknown, and there's a lot we don't know about this virus. Sometimes we fill in the gaps of information by going to the dark neighborhood in our heads and creating these really dark what-if scenarios, such as, what if I'm infected? What if my mother is infected? I'm telling people not to do that, to concentrate on the what is. Also, most of us don't like change unless we are driving the change. That is not the case in this situation. And then there are a lot of people who have feelings of helplessness, and sometimes that leads them to do something that's positive, such as exercise. In other situations, it leads them to do something that's negative, like panic selling on Wall Street or panic buying in a grocery store. Mia?
So let's get to the pressures now of parenting. I can relate to this one as well as so many others. And appearing to have it all together for your kids' sake. Parents are struggling, though, to keep it together right now. How can a parent make their children feel safe and less anxious about our current situation?
Try to keep the kids in some kind of routine. Remember that children really like structure. Also, give them information based on their age and remind them that mommy and daddy are there to keep them safe and that there are some very smart people who will stop the virus eventually. Here are some signs of a child who might be overwhelmed with anxiety. You might see a regression in behavior. You might see some separation anxiety. The child might have nightmares. If you see that, it means the child is overwhelmed.
We have talked so much about young children and helping them cope. Let's now address teens. They're not always the most communicative to begin with, but unlike small children, they are very aware of what's going on while also dealing with the absence of some major milestones in a teen's life, like missing prom, yearbooks, or even graduation, Bill.
Right, that is going to be very disappointing for those teens, and parents have to think right now and use their imaginations as to what they can do in place of those things. I would usually recommend restrictions on social media use, but in this case I'd recommend to parents that they loosen that up a bit because that might be the teens' only lifeline. Look for opportunities where you can spend quality time with the teen and look for teaching moments. For example, a nurse that I work with sent me a text, and today she said she taught her family how to use a fire extinguisher, how to write a check, how to pay a bill, how to address an envelope, how to grind coffee, how to make coffee. Today she said her lesson was teaching them how to make Spanish rice, and maybe she taught them how to speak Spanish while they're making the rice.
Yeah, learning some of those life's lessons right now, so critical and so very important for us. Great insight there, Bill. You know, it is all so much for anyone to juggle, right? And that's why we want to answer as many of your questions as possible. David's back. What are people asking, David?
Hey, Mia, some really interesting questions coming in right now. This one, I think, Bill, applies to so many people. In these times, I'm having difficulty falling asleep. Please help me calm my mind down. What can people do at the end of the day to fall asleep better?
In a pandemic, this is one of the characteristic symptoms: sleep disruptions. Perhaps having trouble falling asleep, having trouble staying asleep, maybe waking up 2 hours before you're supposed to get up and you can't get back to sleep. Practice good sleep hygiene, meaning stay in a routine, make sure your room is cool and dark, and if you're still worrying, this might sound a little odd, but schedule worry time during the day so that when you lie down, you won't spend as much time worrying. But once again, sleep disruptions to be expected in a pandemic situation.
Good answer. Thank you for that. And here's one that says, I live alone and I have no family and I find this very isolating. I pray, but what else can I do? What can people do about that sense of isolation right now?
Well, I'm telling people to make a list of people that they're close to and call one person every day. Use Zoom, use FaceTime, use your imagination. For example, last night my wife and I took some sidewalk chalk. Outside, we started writing some inspirational messages on the sidewalk, and I wrote "thank you" on the street to our postal carrier. So we really have to think out of the box.
And many people have access to an EAP from work where they can talk to a counselor online, but probably have never used that. What can they expect if they call that phone number?
The Employee Assistance Program is always confidential, so the EAP will not report to their company that they're using that resource. In the majority of cases, the EAP will give them a list of phone numbers and names of therapists who they can call, and it's all virtual therapy right now. But this is a great benefit because in the real world, psychotherapy costs $125 for one session. In the EAP world, they'll give you 4, 5, 6, maybe 8 sessions for free. So I would highly recommend that, and that's a great suggestion.
Bill, thank you for those suggestions yourself. They're really excellent, and I hope a lot of people will be able to take advantage of that and maybe sleep a little bit better tonight. Let's go back to Mia.
Yeah, Bill, so helpful there. Thank you. A reminder now, grab your phone if you haven't already and open up the camera. If you are looking for more information or resources on mental health, we've made it easy for you. Using your phone's camera, point it toward this code on the screen to scan it. When you see it pop up on your phone, tap it. That will take you directly to a special website with resources and information. That wraps this portion of the program. Let's check back in now with Jason.
All right, Mia, thank you. Terry, thank you. And Deborah, thank you. A lot of great information coming to us from all over Texas. Really appreciate all of those. We want to pass this along to you as well. Like many companies, our station's parent company, TEGNA, wants to help our communities through COVID-19 relief efforts. TEGNA has 11 stations across Texas covering 89% of the state. Through the TEGNA Foundation Community Grant Program, we're going to be donating $100,000 throughout the state of Texas and in the communities we serve for various COVID-19 relief efforts. We really want to make a difference and help Texans get through this together. I want to close where we started tonight, talking about unemployment, and just pass along to you that the Texas Workforce Commission says today a lot of people are worried that they haven't been able to get on the site and apply for benefits. They're going to make these retroactive now to when the governor declared a disaster declaration earlier this month. So you're not necessarily missing out on those benefits, even though you haven't been able to get through. Keep trying, hang in there. We're getting through this together. Thanks for being with us tonight.